I'm here on the coast and I love it here. Space and the birds and the marshes across here. And just looking up here, vast space and openness. And every time I come here, it gives me a sense of freedom and possibility. This is a place to come and dream of what might be possible. And the reason I've started the book review here is there's one image in Corina's book that's had me thinking for days. Imagine if you took all this beauty, all this openness, and just imagine if you had a giant newspaper and you covered this marsh and this estuary in strips and strips of newspaper, broke it up into little squares. Can you imagine that? That's how Corina conveys her life. It's just broken up into little squares. And it so much resonates with me and our experience together. Here's Corina's book. In bed, I cut words. This book is so beautiful. Such an exquisite design. What an amazing cover. I'm in awe of this book. Here I am in my little room that I do a lot of music in. Got my guitar, keyboards here. I'm reviewing this book as someone who spent the last 31 years caring full time for his profoundly disabled and ill wife. It gives me some insight into what Corina's going through, and it gives me some insight into the journey. I have to say, if you want to know something about the journey through chronic illness, this book will tell you all you need to know. Corina's book, In Bed I Cut Words, will tell you more about the journey through chronic illness than just about anything else I've ever come across. And I think it does that because, like the experience of being severely ill for a long time, or caring for someone who's that ill for many, many years, decades, it's a journey in which you have to find your own meaning. And this book is a challenge on every level, I think, to find the meaning within. It doesn't attempt to describe anything, rather, through images and through some very powerful emotions that it stirs up, at least in me it did. It leads you deep into Corina's experience, and through that it helps you make sense of your own experience. For example, the analogy of the newspaper cuttings, breaking one's life up into many squares, I find a perfect one for our life. I don't know if that was Corina's intention, and I don't think that's the point of the book. The point of the book is to find your own meaning within it. For our experience, all these many years, has been trying to navigate a completely fragmented and broken world, where you're very much on your own, where everything that most people think of value has been taken away, where most of your life is spent in an incredibly tiny space. And if you think of all those squares, well, if I think of all those squares, I think of spending your whole life in just one little square. Literally your whole life. While the rest of life is out there, all these other squares are, if you think about that estuary and that sea and that beach, that vastness, but that's not accessible to you. You're just in one little tiny part, one little square. So what do you do? How do you make sense of that? How on earth do you survive? How on earth do you find hope? How on earth do you hold on and keep going? Well, to me, the message I take from Corina's book is that within the midst of chaos and randomness and surrounded by so much that doesn't make sense on any level, the way you get through is to find something beautiful to focus upon. I remember in my own book, More Notes for Carers, how Corina talks about sitting in the garden looking at some poppy heads that were decaying. And similarly, in this book, there's a really, really, really powerful image. And it's this one of an old leaf. Just an old decaying leaf. But look closely. Look very closely. And have you ever seen anything as beautiful? And to me, that's what the book tells me. It tells me to find something beautiful to focus on, despite all the chaos. It tells me to hold on to my sense of self. I doubt any of us could ever know just what it took Corina to produce this book. What extraordinary vision. What phenomenal strength of spirit. On this journey through chronic illness, perhaps one of the most important lessons, and certainly this book illustrates it in spades, is the need to adapt. Despite changing circumstances, despite ever-increasing limitation, even so, it's so necessary to carry on finding meaning, holding on to hope, seeking ways to express yourself, seeking ways to free the spirit, in other words. Corina's book is enormously inspiring. It inspires me when I so often feel not good enough, or I feel crushed, or I just feel overwhelmed by everything. To acknowledge that, acknowledge the context, but still create art. And more than this, much more than this, the book has shown me how, I'm very excited about this, how the process of creating art is not a linear process. That frees my soul.